I feel much more powerful with headphones on. And then when I take them off, I feel less important. So now I'm stuck in this world where I just wear the headphones. Does that really bother you, Jessica?
I just feel left out, that's all.
You want these ones?
No, it's okay.
I did that last time too, and I offered the headphones, but she just rejected them. So it's like, well, where do you stand, Jessica?
I was saying earlier when Briggs was here, because he listens, so he was talking really quietly because you could still hear himself. But I'm like, Briggs, what the fuck are you saying? Like, talk. So, you're still loud. Travis is still loud. Taylor is still pretty loud. It's good.
Yeah, Briggs he's known as a mumbler, isn't he? That's kind of irrelevant to this cast. Hello and welcome to the Geekverse podcast. Kind of more of a special episode because this was very impromptu. This was not planned, but one of our fans on Twitter reached out to us and listening to some casts or just casts in general. At Kayla Alway, she wanted to hear what we thought of this show. And at the time of her sending that message, Jessica was the only one who has seen the show. But since then, me and Taylor grinded through it in the last week. And here we are. This is our review of The Umbrella Academy, which is a Netflix original that came out. When did it come out, Jessica? You watched it on release. It was sometime in the last couple months, right?
Yeah, it was fairly recently. I'm trying to find the exact date actually right now. So
sometime in 2019, though, would you say?
Yeah. Fair? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't even remember hearing about it, honestly.
So original February 15th, 2019.
Okay.
It's
cool.
still fairly recent.
Yeah.
Month old, actually.
Month old, indeed. Yeah, so I don't know. This is, it's a good 10 hours worth of TV show. It's kind of like a superhero world sort of storyline, but definitely different than the other kind of, superhero TV shows that are on the market right now. What did you guys think? Spoiler-free overall thoughts before we dive into the nitty-gritty. I'm going to start with you, Taylor, because I see you eyeballing me over there.
Spoiler-free. You mean non-spoilers, just to clarify?
That's what spoiler-free.
Okay, because I couldn't put the two and two
without
together.
Spoiler.
Free of spoilers, or okay. I'm not a huge fan of superhero TV shows. Like, it's just not my thing. That being said,
you've been known to watch a couple episodes and then kind of
couple episodes and then I'm done. I'm not an Arrow guy, not a Flash guy. Those not for me. But that being said, diving into this, I was like, it hooked. The hook came in. I was like, this is good. This is juicy content. Like, these are superheroes that I can really get on board with. And the cinematography was just fantastic. I love the colorful environment, and it was present day, but it felt like a dystopian universe. Obviously, not spoiling. There's a talking monkey, so you got your Planet of the Apes.
And it's very casual, right? Like no one even
casual.
mentions it or bats an eye. It's just here's a talking monkey.
Here's a talking monkey. Yeah. Planet of the Apes in there, and
I knew you were gonna say that. I could just smell it.
I thought it was a really good series, and it just. Like, I finished it this morning, and the ending, without spoiling it, the ending just left me, like, in the back of my chair, like, what the hell? Like, well, now I have to wait, Yeah. I don't like having that happen to me. Mm-hmm. It irks me, but...
Sometimes you're very unclear on what a cliffhanger is and is not.
This was definitely a cliffhanger, I could say.
You could say that.
Am I wrong?
I don't know. I don't want to talk about the ending too much because, that's
fair enough.
definitely venturing into spoiler territory. But how about you, Jessica? What did you think overall? You actually sought this show out of your own regard.
I did.
Originally.
Yeah. I watched it. I guess it would have been back in February. So I will, be honest, even when we get into the spoiler review, it's been a good minute since I've watched it.
Clean minute.
It's been pretty clean. I really enjoyed this, actually. And all, what's his name? Robert Sheehan, the guy he plays Klaus. Goodbye in Hollow Hands. Sure. He's in Misfits as well.
Oh, okay, that's where I recognize him from.
Yeah, I absolutely love him, and I loved his character in this. I super enjoy him in pretty much anything he does. I thought that the actor who played Five did a really amazing job for kind of being the only kid actor who. Really had to have this, 70-year-old man personality. And
a fairly big role at that, too, right?
Yeah, he's one of the main, out of the kind of kids, or the main characters
of the academy.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So I think he did a really great job. And I think although it's supposed to be kind of like superhero-esque, I think it takes kind of a different tone to it. It's not just Marvel-y where, it's based strictly on kind of fighting what's going on. There's a lot more kind of family dynamics to it, and everyone really has a really strong personality that you can find someone that you enjoy out of them. Where if you look at, kind of Thor and Iron Man, they're all very kind of broody and powerful, and that's all there is to it. Where, Ellen Page is, kind of your softer characters. Klaus is obviously
A little more eccentric.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And then you get, your big Buffy main guy. So I think
But he's kind of a softie too.
Yeah, it's true. But we'll let the listeners figure that out when they get there.
Right.
So I think there's people or characters that anyone can kind of find to attach to. It's not just kind of all the same person over and over again. I think that your villainy characters are still fun as well. Where it's there is a seriousness to them, but they add a bit of comedy in there as well to kind of make the episodes a little bit different. I think overall, I would advise watching it. I enjoyed it. I would even say to watch it on 1x speed, per se. But I'll leave it at that for now until we get into some sick spoilers.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think I'm definitely lower than you guys are on this one. I think it was an interesting show. It was decent. For me, there was, there's a lot of different storylines going on throughout this show. There's probably probably 6 or 7 kind of different main storylines. Obviously, they interweave at different points. And there's a couple that, are more important than others, but there's still a lot going on, different character dynamics that can be kind of interesting at times. But I think one of my main problems is, one of the main storylines really sets a pretty high precedent, pretty high stakes for and that happens immediately into the show. And so it makes a lot of those other smaller storylines feel less meaningful, because really in the grand scheme of things, they don't mean anything relative to this, more prominent danger that's just on the horizon. So I think it kind of took away my interest in some storylines and characters, because I wasn't just interested in them based on the characters themselves. There is a few storylines like number 5. I really liked his character and his story for the most part, and he was probably my favorite. And then I'm a big fan of Ellen Page, and at first I didn't really care much for her story, but I think it kind of just had a slow start. But overall, I ended up liking her overall journey throughout the show. But definitely, of the main Academy people, there's a couple in there that even to right now, I still don't really see what their purpose is in the grand scheme of things. I feel you could have just taken a couple of them out and changed a couple things here or there, and it wouldn't really change the grand scheme of things overall. I think as a Netflix show with a pretty grand scope like this, there's definitely quite a few times where I noticed things like a lack of budget hurting the impact of certain moments. So I definitely noticed that as well. I think acting, honestly, was probably worse than it was better. There was probably more characters here that I wasn't really that into from an acting perspective than there was that I liked. But you brought up number 5, and I thought for a child actor, he's really good as well. Obviously, that's kind of the theme that we've noticed, over a lot of movies in the last couple of years. But overall, it was a decent show. I don't know, not one of my favorites, not one of my least favorites, but I don't know if I'd recommend it. I don't know who, or I should say, I don't know who I'd recommend it to, because I think if you're into most superhero stuff, the Marvel shows, or even just the Marvel movies, or even if you're into the DC stuff, I don't know where this really fits into it, because it honestly doesn't really feel like a superhero show at very many points throughout. I don't think that's totally fine, because obviously that's a very crowded space right now anyway. It's good to focus on other stuff. But in that reality, I don't know where the show really fits into. I don't know what it's really doing unique relative to other shows that are kind of out right now. So I don't know if I could really recommend it, honestly. I think you could watch an episode or two and get a vibe if you want to watch the rest of it. Whereas, I obviously knew I was going to be sitting down for the long haul and getting through all of it. So I'm not sure. But either way, I just wanted to give a big shout out to our fan, Kayla, on Twitter for recommending this show to us and wanting to hear our thoughts on it, because I don't know, that we definitely do this for the fans, and it's fun to have that fan interaction. So
on that note, I don't know if I was on. Did we introduce ourselves?
I don't know.
I don't think we did, because
we didn't.
Yeah, I was looking up facts, and all of a sudden I realized I was giving my opinion.
You know what? That's what happens when you let me do the intro. Sometimes I forget things. You can introduce yourself if you want. I'm gonna remain a mystery for this one.
You're okay.
You don't know who I am.
I am the one who needs no introduction, Jessica.
Boom.
The
Maybe
only female voice. You gotta know who I am.
it kind of gives it away, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know.
And how about you over there?
Uh,
I did say your name at one point, so I kind of
Did you?
introduced you.
You were speaking to me. Could have been someone else.
I thought I said Taylor at one point.
That's definitely me. Yeah.
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 Well, I wasn't talking to Jessica. so-
Yeah. No, that's me, Taylor, in the flesh, right
Maybe
here.
that's how we should do it from now on. We should do our introductions after the spoiler-free section.
And then people have to.
What do you guys think of
It's
that?
a good segue.
Well, you know, then people can listen and they'll be like, "Man, I hate that person's view," and then they'll find out it's not Travis, and they'll be like, "Ooh."
Right, they'll have to come up with their
Ooh.
opinions without, having their preconceived biases
Yeah,
beforehand.
exactly.
Good
Is there
point.
anything you guys want to say before we hop into the spoiler section of this?
There might have been. I've totally forgot. Kind of got sidetracked on introductions.
That's fair. Okay, let's do it. Let's talk about the Umbrella Academy. There's 10 episodes here, roughly 10 hours worth of show.
Are you not gonna do the countdown? 3, 2, 1. We're going to spoilers.
No, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think it's necessary.
You know-
We're in uncharted territory right now.
Yeah, we're totally going
Uh-huh.
off the recipe.
Off the recipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a recipe for a successful podcast.
Yeah, it requested only a pinch of salt, but you just decided to, dump a whole
She used the whole
dollop
case.
in there or something.
I feel like that we're missing a salty person. I feel like that salt reference would be better if we.
Yeah,
had-
I'm not very salty. I'm in a pretty good mood right now.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I got my pineapple tropical down here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's sweet.
Okay, let's get into this. I want to actually start out with number 5 and his kind of
Mhm.
storyline because this is, I think, while I really liked this storyline in particular out of the rest of them, I think the fact that it was like just the subject matter of it took away from, this is what I mentioned in the spoiler free, it took away from some other stuff. So obviously number 5 is the kid who I guess was, an old man at some point really, because he's a time traveler. He's been all around. And it's kind of established, and I think it's in the first or second episode, that the reason he has come back to them is because of the impending, apocalypse that's coming in just 8 days or something. I believe it's 8 days from when the show starts. So he's come here to, try and change things. And while I did find his storyline interesting, I mean, this is kind of where I mentioned as well, like the low budget kind of took away from it. So some of those like apocalypse scenes come off cross as like kind of insubstantial just because of like the small set they have for this post-apocalyptic world. And there's like this one travel sequence where he's like just walking down a highway, or he's just walking down a highway with a wagon full of stuff. And then it like skips forward and he's like significantly older, still walking down that highway. And
It's a long highway.
And then it skips forward again, and he's like even older, and he's like just cruising down this highway now. And it's like, why was he just going down this highway for 70 years? Like, I don't know. It just felt kind of strange to me. And it's because those moments are just kind of, they just give you like a little taste, so you kind of fill in the blanks of like what actually he was doing in that time. But I think, just the essence of having this kind of world-ending thing that happens in 8 days, it makes it so like all these other characters in the show who like get sidetracked doing whatever the fuck they're doing. It's like, why? Why are you guys doing that? There's clearly something more important here, and they're just off screwing around. And I think that was kind of a problem for me in the show. I don't know. Did that have that impact for you guys? Because obviously, we talk about this in a lot of movies. If you establish like a world-ending thing in like one Marvel movie, and then the next Marvel movie is just some bad guys with weapons or something, it's like it doesn't have as much impact, right? Because it's not as terrifying as something that we just got accustomed to. And they established that kind of right at the beginning of this show.
I think that it just came down to like they all hadn't talked in years, and they were all just brought together because their father died, and they had a lot of differences in just personality and lifestyles and such. I mean, one of them was on the moon. That's huge. So they all very much were different and divided, and none of them even knew about the world-ending result because number 5 he kind of withheld that communication. He only told
Yeah, I guess he kind of trickled
number
it to the rest
7
of them,
about
right?
that. Yeah, so I think it was okay because I definitely worried about that too. It's like, oh, the end of the world, everyone needs to band together and get this figured out. But they started fixing it. I think, what was it, like by the 3rd day or the 2nd day, I think, before the apocalypse they started working on it. But I eventually realized, okay, all of their stuff and their efforts to stop the apocalypse is actually supposed to be happening this way because this is what causes the apocalypse, even though it looks like they're helping.
Yeah.
So I feel like anything they did to further, stop the apocalypse on like, right when 5 comes back, and if that's the day like he comes back and they're like, okay, we're stopping the apocalypse this day, I feel like that still would lead to the apocalypse happening because of the way they go about it. So
Right. Well, that's kind of what the one time traveling lady mentioned. I don't know her name, but the lady with the white hair who's kind of talking with 5 throughout. She mentions that it's like all destiny. It's all meant to lead to that moment. It's like supposed to be. She doesn't really go into like too much detail on why she believes that, but that's her predisposition.
Well,
but how did you
there's
feel
like the big center that makes sure things happen that way. That things are all supposed to end up the same way no matter what changes, right? They get their little notes that things are going to happen, that the time travelers need to stop or the jumpers need to stop.
Yeah.
So going back to that, it's not really going to matter what anyone does if everyone in these centers are going to make sure things happen in that correct order regardless. But I agree with what Taylor was saying, is that not everyone knows that information right away anyway. So there's kind of that disconnect about what exactly has been transferred. And not just that, but I mean, 5's been out of their lives since they were kids, right? They're all grown up now. So you can kind of take what he has to say with a grain of salt if he just comes back out of nowhere after being gone for 25 years and then all of a sudden he's saying, okay, we need to stop the end of the world.
Yeah. I think, it's not just, like a realistic thing, like what these characters should be doing. It's more just from like a viewer's perspective, because we know what's going on. We know that there's something that's drastically more important than anything else happening. So even if the characters themselves don't know that, and it leads to them going off and doing random stuff, I think that for me personally, that just made me care less about some of their stories, because I didn't really see the point. I guess. So I don't know, maybe I guess you guys didn't feel that when you were watching it, but that was definitely like the perspective I had, at least for mostly it was like Klaus and Diego. I just didn't really care about those two in particular.
I thought Klaus's was good. I liked his kind of background and his story.
I think it was just like, I found him just kind of cringy for the first like half of the show. Like everything he was doing was just like, I don't know if I was supposed to laugh, or I don't really know what the intention was, but whatever it was, it didn't work for me. I didn't really see his purpose. And that's too bad. And then it kind of spreads off into him, obviously, having like a lot of what he's doing is due to his PTSD and his struggles when he was in the war, and that led to his, drug problems and stuff like that. But I still don't really like see what he's doing throughout the show, like what his real purpose is, I guess.
Well, he does all the drug and stuff because he can, if he doesn't, he sees dead people, right? He can talk to the dead. So when he's totally wigged out, he doesn't have to deal with seeing all these dead people. And so like his point is kind of all leading up to when he's sober enough to see the dad and have that conversation with him. And not just that, but he's also kind of the catalyst for 6. Is that
he kind of like he brings like, what was his name, Ben, or number 6
Ben.
into the picture, because he can talk to him, and Ben's dead, which I honestly like. With Ben, like number 6, like I didn't like that he was dead, but I ended up really liking his character, even though he wasn't a huge one like that was portrayed as much as the other ones. But I really enjoyed his character among them, even though he was just connected with Klaus the whole time.
Well, and it kind of gives it, you kind of wonder what's going to happen with him, because there's that scene where all of a sudden him and Klaus are able to actually physically touch, and it makes you wonder what exactly happened with his storyline. Like, the monster killed him, but, I kind of want to know what happened there. I liked Ben and I like Klaus. I like their dynamic together. I didn't find Klaus super cringy like you did.
It more cooled off like halfway through the show, but he just didn't click with me from the beginning, I guess.
I don't remember where I was going with anything, so.
With the first episode, I definitely thought like, oh, he's another like druggy kind of character, like, okay, not my kind of thing, but like his personality that kicked in that first episode after a little bit, from then on, like through the rest of the show, I really enjoyed like his character. Like he had so many different kind of, like he just had so many different like scenes where he just had like not different personalities, but just he was really changing and had so much development going on for his character, especially when he went through that time warp situation, fought in Vietnam, and then came back. And for everyone else, it's mere seconds, but it was like crazy for him, like 10 years, I think it was. So.
Have either of you seen Misfits?
I watched, I think, the first season, or maybe I think that was probably it. I think at the time that was all that was released, or it was the only thing available on like Netflix or something.
Because he in that show is the same. He's kind of like the cringy joke. No
I
one
really
wants
liked
to
him
be
in that
around
show,
him.
but that was also many years ago, so I'm not sure how that show would age on me if I were
Many
to watch it
moons.
today.
I've watched it again recently. I still think it's funny, but I feel like his character is very much kind of the same, kind of the lazy piece of shit, you know, terrible jokes. You know, you could see his character aging into the druggie from Misfits.
It's almost like the same guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I enjoyed him, but I can see where you might not. That being said, like I don't even remember Diego, what he contributed to the story.
Yeah, he kind of felt like a tag along for most of it. Like there was that section where he was with Klaus a lot, and he was just kind of like driving him around to places. And honestly, I don't really know. Like I don't really see what Diego was up to. I guess at the start he had that like she was like a cop or something. Who was she? That was like his love connection or something.
Yeah.
But that kind of simmered out after I want to say the third or fourth episode, and then.
Well, I think that's supposed to give him his purpose, is that, you know, she was murdered.
Yeah.
And so he wants to do shit because of that.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean.
It feels like that's how deep it gets.
Yeah.
It felt like that. Like that was definitely the most baseline of them, and so I don't know. I guess it's not the worst, right? Because I think all the other storylines were better than his, even though his just had like a tiny bit of substance to it. But.
Well, I think Luther, like, I don't feel his storyline had substance either. His was, he went to the moon, and then you find out that his father only sent him to the moon to give him purpose. And so he comes back and finds that out. And it's more like, here's a setup to explain how the father worked, as opposed to giving him actual substance as well.
I think his was tied in with, I can't remember her name, but just how he actually like loved his sister.
Allison.
And they had Allison, and they kind of had that whole connection. Because they kind of showcased, you know, them growing up and what life was like for them, and especially even, you know, he wasn't actually always that jacked and like Harry. Like it was just it was a complete accident that happened, and they did like the pogo shank or whatever, or the pogo thing to him.
I did think there was actually a couple interesting scenes between them, and because that was like a weird kind of relationship, right? It was like just strange in the essence of it. And there was one scene in particular between them where they were just like, they just made like a pillow fort, and they were just hanging out, and they just cracked open these really old cans of Coca-Cola. And it was like a really charming scene. Like I liked that scene between them. But I don't know. I kind of felt like that was like the peak of it, was just like these little moments between them. And I think that's okay, because obviously, like I was mentioning, like there is a lot of like grand scope to a lot of this. And their story seems like kind of minuscule comparing to, you know, Five, who's teleporting around, and, you know, Klaus, who's talking to dead people and stuff. But still, like those little moments, I felt like could be effective at times. So I liked that storyline between them somewhat, even if I don't know. I guess it kind of had some resolve at the end. It just kind of I don't know. I guess I want to actually ask you guys what you feel about Allison and the fact that she lives after. Ellen Page's character Zanya. Is that how it's pronounced?
Vanya. Yeah. I think that Allison is very similar, as in her purpose was strictly to make Vanya forget she has powers. Much like Luther is to show what the father is like, and he's an asshole. Hers is to have this one specific. She made Vanya forget that she had powers. You know, and I think that could be why I didn't necessarily get invested in her kind of thing with Luther and all that, is because her purpose was so shallow that was the only real investment we got in her. And I know that's kind of what you were mentioning earlier about the characters. So while her personality is different, it would have been nice to kind of see her use them more, and kind of get more background on exactly how that works. We only get a couple instances, really, of her using her
ability.
Yeah, her persuasion.
But I think that kind of goes hand in hand with her, you know, at this point now in her life where she doesn't want to use it as much anymore, because especially when that moment happens and it kind of plays back. You see with
her daughter, right?
With her daughter, yeah, and then it plays back through her mind, and she remembers all the things, like, I heard a rumor of da-da-da-da, and it ends on, like, I heard a rumor you loved me kind of thing. You can tell, like, she's used it to get ahead in life, and now she's obviously on this trend of just, I need to stop doing this because I ruined my life.
And you kind of see that she's really the only one who's, like, quote-unquote successful of them, like, grown up. I can't really speak on what Diego his success level because I can't really remember. But the rest of them, Klaus not doing so well. Luther is just kind of like a mess, and then Zanya she's just like a very regular human being. So yeah, I guess she was the kind of one that came out on top, I guess. But I did like the scenes she had with her sister. I thought they were kind of just this interesting dynamic between them. It's like tug of war almost, and then like Leonard is kind of just in between that as well. I liked him, and he was kind of like a Weasley guy, kind of worming his way through. He was a weasel. Yeah, what did you think? You liked him, I'm sure.
No, well, I thought I like a guy who is like supportive of a girl and likes a girl, and he was a go-getter and he was good and stuff.
He likes the girls.
Yeah.
Okay, quickly before we move on to him, obviously with Klaus's ability to talk to people who have died, like maybe that is something they could have done to make some stakes for Allison dying. Like I felt like she maybe should have stayed dead after Zanya chopped her neck open.
I do and I don't. I feel like it's kind of I don't want to say like poetic. That might be the wrong term, but I feel like it's fitting for her to be alive, but she can't speak anymore, and that being her power, because it's like the roles have swapped. Yeah. You have Vanya, who now has powers, and her, who they both she's envied Allison. Now Allison has no powers anymore.
Did it not feel kind of like cheesy and weird too, though? And she's just like writing stuff on like this notepad. Just like she just writes like one word at a time instead of like typing things out. Like Luther's like trying to ask her what happened, and she's just like, Zanya powers. It's like, why don't you just wrote Zanya did this to me or something? I don't know. It just felt really strange to me. Well, personally,
I don't know. I guess it depends how you look at it. You write Zanya powers, and it's like, wow, you got your neck sliced because our sister has powers all of a sudden. Oh, she's dangerous,
Yeah, is writing Zanya, or now you have
Vanya.
Yeah, now you have me saying Zanya.
I'm so sorry.
Vanya did this to me. It definitely leaves it a lot more open. Like, did she fucking samurai sword you in the neck, or?
Well, it almost doesn't matter how she did it, right?
Well, I think it does, because I think the fact that she all of a sudden has these powers does kind of create that dynamic that's happening.
How Luther knew how to put her in the vault, basically, right? Because he knew where to stow her away, because it was like to detain her from the said powers.
Yeah, well, I think I don't know when he became aware of that, like that chamber that was built, but obviously their father had built that because he knew what she was capable of.
Yeah, and it was Pogo that told him about the chamber. So
right. After, I guess, because that was kind of the moment after they kind of stitched her up her neck.
Yeah,
is when he said like, the last of your father's secrets can be revealed, right?
Yeah.
I just want to throw it out before we move on to another character. I had a really hard time it just looked like Luther was wearing too many coats the whole time.
He did look really odd, and that was another like one of those maybe budget things where it's like, you could have done a better job with that possibly. But maybe that was part of it, is that he's supposed to look like something that maybe he's ashamed of or doesn't want to be, and that leads to his like insecurities as a character, possibly. I don't know.
So before we move on to other characters, because we've kind of talked about Allison, Diego, and Luther, kind of the main characters that don't serve a whole lot of purpose. Do you think that leaves it open to give them more storyline in a second season if we do a second season? Or do you think it's just it wasn't enough investment in this first season to really care what happens in a second?
Well, I think you can definitely spin it however you want. I guess I didn't really like the ending, personally. I didn't like I guess it is like technically a cliffhanger, but I don't know. I don't know. I was not a fan of the ending. I'm not really sure exactly why, but Taylor?
I just didn't, it ended like that, and I thought, like, when this whole fight was going down, then Fives was like, we're going to go back in time. Like, right, it's the final episode. We got some cool developments here. And then it ended, and I was like, oh, are you kidding me? Like, this happens all the time, and I'm hating it so much. But, like, that's the only reason I hated it. I like that it set it up for, another season or whatever to come around. I did like that they went back in time, because I liked how, everything was repeating itself. But this time, they had Five with them, and I assume when Five found their bodies in the future of his universe or timeline, that was the asylum or the auditorium or whatever, the stadium that came down on his family.
Right.
So it's just cool to know that. I like when time has changed. I'm a big Back to the Future fan, so I like this kind of stuff. And I never saw Looper, so I don't know.
Well, thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah. I know Kyle said, if you've watched Looper, you've watched Umbrella Academy or something like that, he said. I'm like, well,
oh, right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But I didn't mind the ending. I thought it was good. Yeah.
I think I like the scene itself, but the implications of it, like, I don't know, it kind of felt like it left a lot up, just up to the viewer, I guess. And I guess it's leading to a second season, but I don't know if I like really want a second. I feel like they could have just done like, maybe one more cohesive season instead of. I don't know how far they plan to stretch the show.
I wouldn't want any more than like a second season. One more, I think, is fine.
Yeah, well, I don't know, because the second season is really going to have to take it a different direction, because now that they know everything, obviously you're going to need to set up something as like, another pull, another hook into the second season. It's going to have to be further than like, okay, we got to stop Zanya. How do I pronounce
Vanya.
it?
Vanya V.
You got to stop Vanya. I'll just keep the peace sign up. You got to stop Vanya from, destroying the moon, I guess. Like, there has to be a lot more to the second season than that. So that's where I think there could be a lot more, purpose or weight given to like these other characters that had maybe more shallow stories in this season. Because obviously they're going to have to I think they're going to have to add quite a bit of stuff on there to make something of worth, to make even a second season in the first place.
Well, we still technically don't know what the last piece of the conversation was from Sir Reginald Hargreaves to Klaus when at the barber shop or whatever. Klaus only got like the main thing, like he killed himself, but then the father was like, there's one more important thing you need to know, and then he was pulled out of it. So
right,
there's still something
so that
there
was
they
just
could bring back with.
I think they
with
just
Reginald.
pulled that from pulled that out of there just to leave it up, and maybe they didn't even know what that was, and they're just leaving it in there.
Yeah, big blank.
They'll figure it out later, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, that can be something. So in the next one, he'll have to become sober, so that way he can visit the dad again, and be able to communicate with Ben and, find a way for him to be a part of things, because obviously he can release the monster through Klaus now. See, there's things like that I can find. 5 knows what's going on. Vanya is all of a sudden going to have powers, but that continues. Diego and Luther and Allison, I don't see where they would become these big parts of this next season.
Well, I think one of the interesting aspects of Luther's character is that he feels like he was like the closest to the father character, or maybe like there was the most trust given to him, which is kind of shown. But then obviously when Klaus comes forward with the information of why the father killed himself to bring them all together, obviously Luther doesn't take that very well, and that kind of exists until this season ends. So we don't really know how that's going to resolve yet, or how he's going to feel about that. So I don't know. I guess there's some room there, because maybe he has more information about their father, or like another perspective, and maybe that will change what's even was shown in this season, and maybe there is like some other reality to it. But I don't know. Maybe Luther has some deeper information there that the rest of them don't have.
That being said, just on this topic, as of an hour ago, according to the internet, the Googs,
Captain Goog.
there is still no official word on season 2. So interviews with the cast of season 1 they're not sure. They don't know yet. So it might not have even been popular enough for us to even ever get these answers.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking back now. I feel like the same thing happened with Stranger Things, right? We got to season 1, and it took a few months, right, before it was confirmed for season 2.
Yeah,
that was like Netflix's biggest show. Right?
If it's not popular enough, they're not going to invest in it.
But that was really only a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
So, when the show came out.
I just the only reason I point that out is because the ending seems like they, had they not been sure if they were going to make a second season, I feel they could have made one more episode.
Yeah, I think I would have liked a different ending with Vanya, whereas I feel like that it actually does stand as like it is a cliffhanger, but at the same time it does kind of tie it up. Like you can just kind of assume that they'll rehabilitate her, talk her down, give her some perspective, and they can twist it around just like Leonard kind of twisted her around in this season. So that's fine. Like as an ending, I don't think it's the worst cliffhanger. It doesn't just hold it all back. At the same token, they are obviously leaving it open, and like Taylor said, like there is some details strewn throughout that like there is more to the story, I guess, from the father's perspective, because he's a very mysterious guy.
Well, we don't necessarily did we get everything from like we got some information about Pogo and the mum, but we didn't really get full explanations and detailed backgrounds on both of them, did we?
The mom is a fucking weird character. I don't know what to think about her. Like, obviously it starts out she's just like acting really strange, and you find out she's like kind of robotic and stuff, and that's fine. But then there's like a couple flashbacks where she's just being weird, and she's just that's the whole season. She's like in it very little, and she's just really weird in each scene, and doesn't really feel like there's a ton of there.
Well, she is a robot.
Yeah.
So, she's not just acting robotic, kind of is.
I don't know. Maybe there's more to it. Like, I don't know.
Season 2.
Season 2, there you go.
I felt like just with the mom and Pogo, it was just very, I didn't need to know too much. Pogo just kind of, he said his background, I was, he was my master and this and whatever.
You don't wonder why he was created or why.
No, I've seen enough origin stories of how monkeys can talk and be human-like, so I'm good with it.
We've seen enough movies that like we just kind of accept that.
Watch
kind of
enough
accept
Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah, it's
As
a prequel.
moviegoers, it's
Watch
like-
Planet of the Apes before you watch
just
this.
understand.
Prequel.
Yeah, it's a prequel.
Oh
movie.
no. I don't want to live in that world.
I do want to quickly point out, like, I don't know if I said that. I agree with you on Fives. Fives is definitely my favorite character, but I just want to say, like, the fight sequences they had when they play in some like awesome songs and they just a fight's coming. I love that. And my favorite one is legit. I got so excited. I popped off in the chat with this. When Fives starts running out from dinner and he starts like sprinting through time. The Woodkid song kicks in. Run Boy Run. Oh, I rewatched that a few times.
For the fans at home, Woodkid I guess is a band, an artist that Taylor really likes, and at one point just got put in our Facebook group chat that we have as a podcast, and I don't really. It's a very strange meme, and it's just become like an in-house meme, I guess, that we just joke around with.
It's
Woodkid.
your name in the.
I've changed my name in our group chat to Woodkid. I think it started with it's just a funny band name, right? It's just weird.
It is.
Why would you make that the name of your band? Woodkid.
That's the diner scene, the sequence.
No, this was when number 5 left eating dinner and went outside, and this is right when. It's when number 5 left the eating dinner with his family when he was a boy, and he ran outside. He thought he could jump through time, so he jumped through. He jumped once,
first,
then the next. It was at the beginning of episode 2, I think. So,
it's been too long. No idea.
Oh, okay.
Very specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's great. I love that whole sequence of number 5.
Yeah. I want to talk about another storyline that I think was a letdown for me, and that was for the majority of the show. What was the kind of main like villain throughout, and that's like these two agents who are kind of hunting down Cha-Cha and Hazel. God damn, my V's and Z's today are fucking off. It's these headsets, man. They're messing with my feedback. I hear myself talk, and it's messing with me. Anyway, there are these two agents who are after 5 originally, and they're kind of after this briefcase, and that's kind of their thing. And they're kind of interweaved with that whole time-traveling assassination group. But I just found them incredibly dry. Like, I didn't really care for any of their scenes. They were a big letdown for me, and that was a big problem because that was essentially the villain for like the entirety, at least the first half, and then it kind of switches where you're kind of suspect of Leonard because Alan kind of tips you off that he's kind of weird. And then there's this scene where like Leonard has like that person in his attic or something. Like, what's going on there? That's pretty messed up.
Yeah, the first chair lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that happens, and then it kind of switches to Ellen Page's character. I'm not even going to say her name anymore. I'm just going to give up on the V's and Z's today.
Vanya.
So yeah, they're really kind of the driving force, at least as like a source of peril for the first half, and they did not work at all for me. And then even their ending, they just have like this really strange situation where he like marries this bird watching donut lady, and then like they're trying to kill each other unsuccessfully, and then like 5 was doing it. I don't know. It's a strange storyline, and like I understand its purpose and the scope of the show and why it's there, but God, I could not be any less interested in those two.
You never just hit it off with a donut making bird lady before?
Can't say I have, but I've been single for a while. Maybe I should try it.
Any bird watching donut fans?
Hit me up on Twitter. Thoughts?
In the beginning, I liked them a little more, I think, and then it kind of trailed off, or maybe I liked them more as it got farther in. I remember liking them together. They're, not necessarily individually as characters, but kind of their chemistry together. But it definitely became kind of pointless. By the end of it, I didn't really care all that much about her getting her own storyline to chase him down as he went to go run away with the donut lady. When it was them chasing 5, it felt relevant. And then afterwards, it kind of was like, hey, this can get its own spin-off.
A spin-off I don't want.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't even necessarily remember that much about them. The only thing I remember is they each had to like kill themselves, and you get the flashback of them in the woods, each planning to kill each other at the same time, and then they don't.
Well, that's the thing. She is a pretty bland character. She's really just like a workaholic who kills people, and that's kind of all she gets for her substance. Whereas he, through the donut lady, has at least some semblance of personality. But like you're saying, like that doesn't really pop in until the last 3 episodes, really. So up until that point, he's kind of in the same boat where they're kind of just like these, very much just like goons. Honestly, they're just like goon level interest in terms of villain, but they're like the leading villain for half of it. So kind of a strange dynamic. I don't know, Taylor. You're a fan of characters like these sometimes, aren't you?
Yeah, with no backgrounds.
You liked Hazel.
I did. When they first when they first popped in, I thought like, oh, okay, who are these characters? And that being said, like I really enjoyed when they popped the masks on and they were just going around like their sequence where they were.
That is like
high as
the
a kite.
Netflix like thumbnail, right? Is those masks?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
So that's like the first thing you see of the show.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
well, at least me personally. Maybe not Taylor.
No, apparently not.
Taylor clicked on that show so fast.
He
But
saw that talking monkey, and he was like, "Sign me up."
Oh yeah, I love that talking monkey. But yeah, no, I loved all their sequences a lot. I thought it was cool, like wondering what is this briefcase thing, and like how are in the walls, like are these tubes just popping up, with their directions. But I liked how they were just talking badly about their job and their work and stuff and management and just a lot of the stuff that they were doing. I really enjoyed. I definitely found that it was very bland. I won't lie, like their kind of storyline leading up to the point where they had to kill each other. I actually really liked that a lot because as soon as we got to see Cha-Cha get the letter saying that she had to kill Hazel, immediately I knew like, okay, no, this is definitely a setup. Hazel definitely has that mission directive as well, even though they didn't showcase that till the next episode. You could just tell when they're out in the woods and he's down tying his shoe. I'm like, this is so out of character for him. They're both trained killers. Obviously, he's doing something too, but he didn't. So I don't know. Like from that point on, I thought it was really good, and I got a kick out of when the director came in and like it all clicked for even her. Like, wow, we didn't order you guys to kill each other, but he called her out, and he's like, well, she's like, the director's like, you guys are supposed to do what we say. The egg thinks it's smarter than the chicken, and he's like, well, so we were supposed to kill each other, and she just is taken aback a little bit. Yeah, I just think that was really funny. Yeah.
I don't have any moments like that where I remember specifically what they said.
Oh.
So
that was a kind of a funny scene because it like they're in the middle of fighting each other and then kind of like time freezes and the lady pops in.
The donut lady was like flying back into that hot love tub or whatever.
Hot love tub.
the love tub.
The love tub. Hashtag love tub. Hashtag woodkid. Yeah, no, I guess, what about that lady? Because she doesn't really pop in until halfway through, but the kind of head honcho, I guess you could say, or at least from our perspective, the head honcho of the time-traveling assassin group. Is there a name? Do we have a name for that particular
I thought
team?
it started with an S or something. The something. Because I remember you get to see her on her desk. She actually has a title.
She
Okay.
is the handler.
The handler, yes.
The handler.
Not starting with
All
an
I
S.
know is that she was in Grey's Anatomy. So.
I didn't know that. I liked her character enough. I think mostly because it was tied around Five and his storyline, and I was just a fan of him in general. And it's an interesting like mystery because obviously that's like it's pretty out there, like that storyline, right? The fact that there's just like these time traveling assassins that are going around killing Kennedy and all these other classic assassination cases because it all leads to the eventual doom, which I guess kind of works. It like doesn't really make that much sense, but I guess it kind of. You could weave it into making sense in some way. Because, I mean, once you really know what causes the apocalypse, it's almost like, what does it matter if Kennedy was shot or not? I don't know. I don't really understand where that comes into it. But anyway, that's kind of what happens there. But I don't know. I thought she was kind of interesting enough, at least like the mystery of what exactly is going on here. And it's like the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was someone above her, too, that we never see, right?
Exactly, right? Like, that's kind of just from our perspective, she's the highest up. But maybe that's something as well like could tackle with season 2, right? Is who is even in control of her, and then who's in control of that guy? Who's in control of that guy?
Well, she's apparently dead now, I'd say. Like somehow she survived.
She definitely took a grenade to the foot.
To the foot, yeah. But
Does she pop back after that?
Well, she did, yeah, because she got fives threw the grenade at her in that room, and she blew up. And then.
But if they go back in time, then she's not.
Yeah, but that's
no,
that's
because
true,
5
but-
like specifically took those just the Umbrella Academy, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well,
'Cause,
yeah,
like-
but no.
but then other people would be
Yeah, exactly. If you're jumping back in time, then other people that are alive when you go back to are still going to be alive.
But then does that mean that
it's the classic
Hazel
space-time
and
anomaly.
Hazel and Donut Lady, they jumped in time too? So if Fives goes back in time, does that mean that Hazel and Donut Guy or Donut Lady?
Donut guy. That's the change. That's the butterfly effect. It's a donut guy. That's amazing.
Would they end up? Would they automatically be brought back against their will without knowing it? Because
They probably go
Fives
their own
went through?
timeline.
Okay,
They would no one should know except for the Umbrella Academy. I would imagine that the rest of them do know, other than 5 as well. After they do this time jump, when they're like all aware of it, I'm not sure. Maybe their memory gets kind of reset too. I would imagine not, but
Yeah.
it's
Well,
hard to say.
because it's
with
going to
this stuff.
depend what happens to the Umbrella Academy in the time that they jump back to, right?
Yeah.
Because technically we don't know, are they just going to replace them, or will they live in a double dimension where there's 2 of each of them because they all jump back?
I don't think double
Yeah.
dimensions with 2 copies of themselves exist in this form.
No, it does
because-
seem like they just kind of reset because you see after that they're all like back to being children again, right? So they go
Yeah.
back to that point in time, and I guess they still have the same memories, or I would imagine at least. It's kind of hard to say. That's where I guess that's kind of the more element with the ending that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Mhm.
Whereas you can see, like, you can understand what they might be doing to change Vanya's point of view. See that? I got it that time. But yeah, I guess it's kind of unclear how much of it the rest of them know, other than 5.
Mhm.
I guess you can just go back in time and be fine, because 5 did turn into an old man, and then he just reset into a child, and he could still remember it all, right?
Yeah.
So you'd have to assume that it's the same for all of them. But I would assume it's just the people in the circle when he did
but
the time
when
jump.
he came back to a point when he had already left, whereas this time they're going back to a point.
Oh, so that
the-
version of him is gone?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, because he's coming forward in time. He's not going back to a time
Uh-huh.
like pre him, right? So technically, it's a different scenario. It's jumping forward as opposed to jumping back.
Right.
So, and I mean, I think too as well. Yes, he brought them all along, but it's his power to do the jumping. So, I mean, will it still play out the same for the rest of the academy? Because they're not the ones with the power to jump. So, if that makes sense, what I'm trying to get at.
I think
so.
I think I know what you're saying, and that's definitely something I'd like to see how they try to answer that in season 2. Like, what exactly do they remember? How do they remember it? How do other people not? It's a classic time jumping around. It's tricky from a storytelling perspective for sure.
It's true.
How do you do it? I would not write a story like that until I was a seasoned veteran.
You gotta get a couple of different storylines under your belt before you start mingling the time.
Definitely. Do you have any other stuff? Those are most for me. Those are kind of like the big storylines.
Yeah. I was gonna tag on to your oh god, I can't even remember.
Oh no.
To answer the one question, we kind of drifted away though. Like, I do think that the handler is dead because I feel like she kind of is placed outside of the whole time lapse, but she got shot and she suffered a moon to the face.
Right. So like even if they go back to when they were children, who knows like when she really came from in the first place? Like she could have come from
Yeah,
the
I feel-
prehistoric era.
Yeah, so I feel like it's okay if she dies in their like time like outside of time kind of building
Yeah.
wherever they're stationed, because then she's outside of time and they can rebuild her obviously. But well, I guess that's another thing. They build bodies apparently, so maybe they could just get her consciousness or something like that. I don't.
They build bodies?
Yeah,
I
because they
missed
said to
that.
Fives, they're like, yeah, we're building you your new body right now. And she whipped out this nice suit and stuff for
Oh,
him.
I missed that.
Yeah.
To match his age, so he
Hmm.
wasn't sucking a kid's body.
I see. That makes
Mhm.
sense.
I mean, we don't actually see anything into that. It's more just the verbal conversation.
So we don't even know if that's true.
No.
Right?
I guess in theory, yeah. No,
She
we don't.
probably was lying to him a lot.
Probably.
There, good chance.
She was definitely trying to screw with him. Like she was just trying to like deceive his mind, twist him a little bit by a few means.
Well,
if
that
you catch
bathroom
my drift.
scene was weird.
Yeah, no, she was, he's a child. Like, you gotta, yes, he's an old child, Benjamin Button style, but, like, you gotta be careful what you're doing, handler. Like, come on.
I don't know. I think, although the ending definitely was, as Dylan said, it could be left the way it was. I think it would be nice to have a season 2 and just see.
There is definitely a lot to be unpacked.
Yeah, there is definitely questions that they could answer and things they could expand on if they were to continue. And I don't know. I'm not actually sure how much Gerald.
Reginald Hargreaves.
It's not
Reginald Dwight.
No, the writer from
Oh,
My
yeah,
Chemical
that guy.
Romance. How far he wrote into the comics, I haven't looked into it, so I don't know if technically there's even anything written to go off of, or if it would be kind of shot in the dark right now. So that could be a determining factor as well.
They could do something really experimental with season 2 where they have like 3 sets of like four episode long like storylines, and they could have like different timelines that they jumped into, and you could see like different things unfold.
That's
Whether or not it's from the comics, I have no fucking clue. I just pulled it off the top of my
This
scalp.
definitely would be a cool show, though, that each one could kind of get their own 2 or 3 episode spin-off with their own powers.
Honestly, after this first season, that is something they could do. I mean, that'd be probably pretty hard to pull off. It'd be hard to achieve, but Netflix is trying to be
they did
experimental
that
with things.
Bandersnatch was
They did do a Bandersnatch.
that
so-
was quite the
and they're doing that Love,
attempt.
Death, Robot thing with the episodes showing in different orders to people, things like this.
haven't watched it, no idea.
Well, apparently that's just something they're doing. Like the show is like 16 episodes long or whatever, and based on whatever Netflix algorithms are, like you'll get shown the episodes in a different order. They're like 4 different orders that the episodes are shown. It's an anthology series, so it like doesn't really matter, but they're still trying it out for some reason. So Netflix is on some next level shit with their technology.
Next level.
Well, I don't know. We might not know for a while. I mean, there's been shows, you get Stranger Things that they're coming out super quick, but you also get shows like The OA went, I don't know, a good year and a half or so before we got anything else.
Well,
so.
Stranger Things is 1 year each, isn't it?
But there was like announcements and, hype online.
Right.
I feel like I'd have to look, but
What was it? 13 Reasons Why. When did they announce season 2 for that? Was it right away?
one
That was
came
pretty quick.
Really
It was pretty quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say, yeah.
Yeah, that one was really popular.
I think they were trying to ride on the high of that one and keep the momentum flowing, whereas Stranger Things seemed to amass pretty big following from the get-go.
Yeah, so the first episode of the OA was released in December 16th, 2016, and we just got season 2. Like, the episodes just went on Netflix a couple days ago.
Oh, snap. Okay, that's a long time then.
So, there's a good chance that it could be a while before we even hear anything again about season 2.
Yeah. Yeah, Netflix can do whatever they want.
Yeah, it really depends on kind of the hype, I think. If people start to make a fuss online and on social media, that's when they're willing to put the money in.
Yeah, obviously we talked about how like different this is than other Marvel, or like not Marvel stuff, but just like superhero shows in general, particularly Marvel, because Netflix has a bunch of their own. But they're not doing those anymore, so maybe this is something they'll want in there to fill that kind of niche.
Would you classify this as superhero? I would.
I mean, it certainly has elements of it, right? And I don't know if those elements are just picked out because that's popular right now, and that's like a good thing to follow in the footsteps of. But it certainly has elements of that, right? Like there's a team working together that have superpowers. Right?
Like I definitely can agree with like comic book, but I don't know that I would almost necessarily classify it as superhero.
I see it definitely as superhero. I mean, that whole scene of when they were kids and they were saving the bank, that just completely just felt superhero-like, the way they tackled
that's
it. So.
one scene out of
This
entire
show
first.
feels a lot more like Heroes than it does like Jessica Jones or something. But I think that just shows perhaps I don't know. That's kind of interesting in itself, right? Because obviously Marvel stuff is very established at this point, whereas I mean Heroes is quite a while ago, but it actually does kind of feel like that now that I think about it.
Yeah, like I wouldn't classify Heroes as a superhero.
Right. It's like that's just like the setting,
the
right?
universe,
But
yeah.
it's more focused on like the character like the character connections, I guess.
So something to I'll throw it out
It's
there.
certainly in that pocket, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The sci-fi kind of maybe sci-fi. Not quite sci-fi.
Sci-fi-ish.
But I don't know. I don't see, like I said earlier, I don't see it as Iron Man or
well, actually,
Thor.
I can't really recall. Is it shown where they get their powers from? Like how he gives them to him again? I forget.
I don't think so. They like at the beginning.
He kind of just like gives them to him. Like,
Well,
you-
because they were all born at the same time. So
At the one beginning of the very first day, there was 43 children born of people who were not pregnant the morning that they woke up. So they're all just like
that's a tongue twister right there.
simultaneously born all around the world from people who instantly got pregnant and gave birth.
Oh, okay.
yeah, that first
Immaculate
episode like was
conception.
wild. Like, because I didn't know what the show was about. So I just see these like this guy and this girl at the pool, and they're like obviously like being cute and stuff, and then the girl kisses the boy on the cheek and jumps in, and she pops out and she's pregnant. It's
Yeah.
like, whoa, what is going on with this show?
You can find out
But-
why that's not going to happen when we do our After 9 Sex Ed episode.
Yeah. I honestly though I would really much like to see the other like 40 other heroes out there, because I think there's so much like other stuff they could tackle with that.
That's actually a good point as well. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, that could definitely be something for season 2. They run into other people that weren't purchased by this crazy guy.
So, honestly, the more we've talked about it, I think we've really mentioned a few ways that, other than obviously the main story of Vanya, trying to save her from destroying the moon, really there actually is like quite a bit of stuff that they could jump into, like that's already kind of established in this season. So really, I mean, obviously you're talking about these other superheroes or super characters that they would bring into it that are out there that we have no idea what they, where they are, what they're doing, but still like you could easily kind of swindle that into this show for having some sort of villain or maybe new people on the team, or who knows what they would do with it. But honestly, there's a lot of room for more content if they want to do it. And I think it is outside of just like the cliffhanger ending that they had, because a lot of this stuff isn't really mentioned in this season, which honestly didn't really feel like a problem. Like, it doesn't feel like a problem that we don't know where the other 40 people are that were born on that day. But at the same time, there's still like room there for, some more content if they want it.
Yeah, to be honest, when Hazel and Cha-Cha appeared, I honestly thought that they were other supers, and because they said like Cha-Cha even says like we're going after one of our own or whatever. So I thought that, because I didn't know they were time travelers yet.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that they were supers going up against like
They don't really
their-
feel like
their
time
other
travelers.
siblings. They didn't
Well,
feel
because I
like
don't think they don't really have the ability themselves. They just kind of get sent
just
places,
the
right?
briefcase that works. That briefcase is the machine that does it.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
even then, when they were fighting the Umbrella Academy in the mansion, they were holding their own. That's another reason why I thought they were supers. And I started to think like, well, what if like Hazel, like an alternate timeline, like what if he's like a different version of Luther or something? I don't know.
Ooh.
I was just thinking like weird stuff. So
That is pretty weird. I have to say I didn't think of that particular solution myself.
So I will just throw it out there that originally, apparently, this was supposed to be a movie by Universal Pictures.
Really?
Wow.
And this was back in 2011 and became shelved when it decided to be a television series instead, being picked up or greenlit by Netflix in 2017. So I think there has to be
Feels like that would be a lot of stuff stuffed into one movie for sure.
Well, and it's got to show some thought into future more than just, one series. If they're, they were going to just movie it and decided that they needed more
They could just
expansion.
do like different timelines with like different movies, like Futurama style, where they just had one season that was just 4 movies. Like that's what they could do for this show. Just season 2 is just 3 separate movies of like what could have been or what could happen.
Yeah, different timelines. I like it.
Then the budget might be a massive issue. That time.
Oh yeah, I feel like if they went down the route of making this just a movie, I feel like you get something very similar to Watchmen in that kind of sense.
I haven't seen Watchmen.
You haven't seen
I
Watchmen?
have not seen Watchmen either.
So tell us what you mean, Taylor.
I feel
the
like
viewers at
'cause,
home.
well, Watchmen is just like a collection of different like heroes with these or different characters with abilities
Okay.
in the normal everyday world. I even think there's like an end of the day kind of scenario in Watchmen, and the heroes.
You
come
always got to have
together.
one of those. In
You
your
gotta have at least
superhero
one.
formula.
So
Throw it in the cauldron. see
Oh,
what pops
throw it
out.
in the cauldron. Yeah, I just find like the heroes come together to try and save the world at the end, and some heroes die and all that stuff, and
Whoa. You
yeah.
didn't have to go that far, Taylor.
But yeah, I'm glad that they did it in a TV series.
It does feel like the right format.
It does feel like the right format. It was definitely exhausting doing it within a span of 2 days, but it was worth it.
Yeah, no, I definitely recommend the 1.5 speed.
1 point. I'm gonna have to try that with certain shows.
I'm going to be doing it a lot now.
Yeah?
It's going to save me a lot of time.
Apparently, there was.
I cleared an easy 2 hours, by doing that strategy.
Apparently, there was 12 issues of the actual comics and 3 short stories. So I think it sounds like there's a lot to work off of. I don't know.
So you want to see a season 2?
I want to see a season 2.
I could be perused into watching a season 2.
Yeah.
Taylor?
Yeah, I'll buckle me in. I'm
Buckle
good to go. Yeah. Get that seatbelt
I'm not gonna.
on.
You have to buckle yourself.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable. Do you guys have any other thoughts, mentions, problems?
I think that if you are into the comic book genre, you want a bit of a break from Marvel and DC, but
Yeah, more character driven. There's not a ton of action in this.
yeah, exactly. You're looking for something that has a little more depth to it than just, yes, the world's ending, but here's some fun character building along the way. I think it's worth checking out. I had fun watching it. As I've said, I watched this of my own accord, not for the podcast, and I enjoyed it. I am interested enough that I want to see a season 2, get some answers. So my recommendation, I guess, would be to check it out.
That's a good recommendation. Mr. Field?
I would like to say, though, I recommend watching it on 1 time speed.
I recommend at least 1.3. These are long episodes. Hour long, no break.
Hour long, yeah. I would definitely recommend this show. When I popped it on my Netflix, I could see someone else had already watched it. It wasn't
Ooh.
Madison. I don't know who. So
He's a time traveler, Taylor.
Yeah.
Taylor watched it.
Yeah, might be my dad, to be honest.
Probably your dad.
But it was definitely something I always wanted to watch. I'd be scrolling through Netflix and I'd see Pogo in the door. That would be the picture, and I'm like, I want to know about this monkey. The fact that he died, and he died so poorly, that really irked me. I didn't think that Vanya needed to kill him. He didn't do anything wrong.
She didn't need to kill a lot of things, like
She
every
didn't.
single person on Earth, but she
No.
did anyway.
Yeah, and that's one more thing. Actually, I'll just quickly bring up when she was talking to Allison. She's like, "You put me in there," and Allison's like, "I was a little kid. I didn't know." She was a little kid. She didn't know. Vanya's like, "You put me in there," and then so she near the end, Vanya started to piss me off actually. But yeah, so the overall though, I think you should definitely check this out. I would definitely recommend it. I want that season 2. This is easily like an 8 out of 10 for me. I'm going to give it nice. It's as far as, superhero TV shows go, this is a very nice surprise. And
you don't even finish most of those.
I don't even finish most of them, no, but this totally pulled me in. I loved all their superpowers. Each one was very unique with different personalities and developments. So, yeah, and I'm a big Reginald Hargreaves fan. I love that monocle. He's just
Reginald
he's
Hargreaves.
Good to go.
I guess as for myself, it is kind of unfair to compare these to the Marvel Netflix shows, but for me that's like a big point of reference, right? Because I've watched all of those. For the podcast, we've done reviews for all of those, well, most of them at least, since the podcast has been a thing. And it is very much a similar style. They're not like the Marvel movies. They're much more about the characters and side stories, side adventures that kind of all tie back into the main story. And honestly, if I was to compare this show to any of those, I don't know. I don't know if it would be better than any of them, honestly. And there's a couple Netflix Marvel shows that are kind of weaker, and I don't know if any of them are even weak enough to stoop to this level. I don't think it's a bad show by any means, but for me, there was just there's a couple storylines that were quite interesting, but then the rest kind of fell flat. With that being said, if there was a season 2, I think I would at least watch a couple episodes to see what kind of route they're taking it, see if it's something I'd be interested in watching the rest of. And I don't regret watching it. I think there was some fun stuff to be had in here, though I don't know if I'd rewatch it, and I don't know if I'd really recommend it to many people. I think there's better stuff to watch on Netflix. That we've reviewed, things that we haven't reviewed. I'm sure there's even some interesting stuff as well. But I don't know. That's pretty much all I think for us here today.
That could be going to say on that. I got bored of the Marvel superhero stuff that was on Netflix. I never watched the last season of Jessica Jones. I never finished Luke Cage. And I enjoyed this. So it could just be, like you were saying, the difference in what exactly you're into. If you're into kind of that more Marvel-y superhero stuff, it might not be for you. So
it's true.
I don't know. Maybe you just watch that stuff because Travis made you to review it with him.
Throwing some more shade.
That's definitely not the case. but no, that's what I'm saying is Jessica Jones season 2 is a pretty bad show. I did not like that at all. And actually, this is probably I would say this show probably is better than Jessica Jones season 2, and maybe Luke Cage season 2, maybe Iron Fist season 1.
No,
it's in that tier. I would say it's definitely Jessica Jones season 2 is actually awful. I should mention that show is very bad and should not be watched. Season 1 though is outstanding. So that's where that one stands, I guess. I think that's pretty much it for us today. Do you guys have any other closing out points?
I don't think so.
Cool.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. You want to? Where can they find us, Taylor?
Oh, they can find us with internet connection in the search bar. Just go Facebook, Geekverse Space Podcast, Twitter, Geekverse Cast, and I'll shout out, because Travis isn't here right now, but we're
He's
trying.
not with us anymore.
He's not. No,
He
I'm very
quit.
unfortunate. Make sure give us some reviews. We want to hit that 200 mark on iTunes because then it sets us up to be on Rotten Tomatoes. I know
Yeah.
Travis doesn't want me on there, but that's a huge goal of ours right now. So make sure that happens. All it is takes a few seconds out of your day just to hit a like or a 5-star or 1-star or whatever, and just leave a review, justify it. So it really goes a long way. And yeah, we're all over the place. So check us out. Social media.
There's a lot of other superhero stuff to be checking out. You guys did Shazam. We got to see that early. So you guys did you guys do a spoiler and two separate episodes?
Yeah.
So the spoiler-free episode should be up right now.
Yeah,
if not by the end of the day, and then spoiler version will be out when
it actually
April,
drops.
April
like
7th or
5th
something.
or something, 6th or whatever.
Around there.
We got quite the range. Travis said from April 4th.
Our producer just came in saying that Shazam comes out
JJ himself.
April 5th. It's J.J. Abrams. What else? There's Captain Marvel. There's
I don't know. This guy's got better hair
Than who?
than JJ.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me. I'm like, what? What are you trying to say?
No, your hair. Whew, look at that flow.
Look at that flow. That's pretty much it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate every single one of you. Thank you, Kayla, for recommending the show to us. We love the fan interactions. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next time.
Until then, we promise it won't be boring.